The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're going to love it.
Okay, let's go.
Hey, happy Thursday, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope the week is going well. I know you're getting ready for another weekend, and if I do an episode on Friday, I'll probably freak out about it being Friday again, like I always do. Now I'm going to stop doing that. Anyway, all right, listen, a couple things to talk about today, and then I seriously want to really open it up to kind of gauging some more audience reaction to some things. But I will tell you, I've just heard a lot of things lately, and I did want to bring this up because, again, I want to gather some information if you guys know of people. But there is a unbelievable spike in kind of, well, first of all, sudden deaths for sure, which is another topic. I'm not really going to talk about that today. But there's also a tremendous increase I've seen in cancer-related situations among younger people. You know, they're calling it turbo cancer. But anyway, what made me want to talk about this is I had a friend send me an article yesterday that was in CNN, actually, of all places. And the title says, "Study links accelerated aging to cancer risk in younger adults. Researchers looking for clues about why some types of cancer are on the rise in younger adults say they found an interesting lead, a connection to accelerated biological aging." So that was in CNN. That's the headline. I thought that was incredibly odd. Like, they're attributing the rise of cancer in younger adults to accelerated biological aging. So let me read you a little more of this. It says, "Aging is the major risk for many types of cancer, meaning the older you get, the more likely you are to be diagnosed." Okay, so let me talk about that a second. You know, to be honest with you, I mean, I agree with that, and I don't think that necessarily in and of itself is anything all that controversial, and I'll tell you why. You know, personally, based off of all the research that I've done, and, you know, again, remember, I have a liquid vitamin business, so I look into this stuff. I've been really, really on top of health-related things for over a decade now, and even prior to that, I would honestly say I really started taking my health seriously in around 2005, 2006. Because, gosh, I remember I ballooned up to I think I was 172 at my peak. Man, that was fat. Holy mackerel. And this morning I was 148. So I'm staying at that 148 mark. My goal is to get back down to fight night 144. But anyway, so I've really been cognizant of my health, let's say since 2005, 2006, like in a big way. And then the last decade, you know, with Boost launching in 2013, I mean, I've read so many research papers, you know, I buy clinical data. We do all these things. There's a lot of, I guess, dedication to information that's gone into, you know, the creation of the liquid vitamin products, but then also just gone into health because I've become very passionate about it. And so, you know, when I started reading that article, I was like, okay, as you get older, yeah, the reason people get diagnosed more often as you're older is because you've got years and years and years of toxicity that you're building up in your body. Honestly, this is why I preach so much about getting your steps in, moving, not letting your blood be stagnant in your body, you know, getting that lymphatic drainage going, getting that blood moving up and down, getting those 10,000 steps in on a daily basis. And then aside from that, you know, I haven't done a dedicated episode to sweating, but I'm a huge, huge believer in sweating. I honestly think the only true detox that your body knows how to do is number 1, number 2, and number 3. And number 3 is sweating. So basically, your body is built to detoxify itself every time you go to the bathroom, every time you go number one, and especially every time you go number two, you're getting rid of obviously everything that, you ate the day before. And so you're driving out that toxicity and then sweating, whether that's in a dry sauna, which I'm a huge, huge fan of the dry sauna. If your gym or wherever, some people have them in their house now, they've got the portable dry sauna machines. If you have access to a dry sauna, and that is something that you can basically do 3 to 5 times a week, 7 times if you can, but let's say 3 to 5 times a week. I highly recommend those dry saunas. I do not recommend the steam room. I think the steam room is not good for your lungs, and there's a lot of research that talks about how, taking that wet, moist air over your lungs causes residual damage. I don't know exactly what kind of damage, but the steam room also definitely has the ability to, if somebody sneezes in that steam room, those germs are airborne and chances are you're going to inhale whatever that person sneezed out. So I don't use the steam room at all myself, but I definitely use the dry sauna as much as I can. And I use it to sweat. I really use it to sweat. The other thing I do, and I've linked to this before and I've talked about this before, is, I wear this, I call it my fat suit, but I wear this sweatsuit when I run. And I mean, that 10X's my sweat factor. So my 3-mile run ends in the shedding of almost 2 to 3 pounds of sweat. So that's like 48 ounces of liquid that comes out of my body when I'm sweating. So anyway, the detoxification process is huge. And so I can understand cancers becoming more prevalent as you get older, especially if you're not taking care of yourself because you're building up that toxicity, but not in the younger adults. I definitely kind of question this article and question some of the sources. And so let me read you a little bit more of this. It says, we all know cancer is an aging disease. However, it is really coming to a younger population. So whether we can use the well-developed concept of biological aging to apply that to the younger generation is really an untouched area, said Dr. Yin Chow, an associate professor of surgery at the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. I mean, that to me, I'm not going to make this episode controversial. I'm not. But what I am going to say, and you can read between the lines on this, is this all started in late 2021, 2022, probably 2022, actually. So all of this turbo cancer, increased cancer in the younger generation, the sudden deaths of younger people. I mean, you've got 50-year-old people dying in their sleep, people dying on treadmills, people dying, walking around the neighborhood, running around the neighborhood, actually. And again, I'm not saying none of that stuff ever happened before, let's say, 2022, but it has really increased dramatically, basically starting in 2022. So again, I'm not going to make this episode controversial. All I'm going to say is give that a little bit of thought. All right, let me read you a little bit more of this. It says, we're seeing more and more cancers, especially GI cancers and breast cancers in younger individuals. Anyway, the article went on then to talk about some developmental drugs that they're creating to basically counteract this. And again, I'm just not saying what I'm saying, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, give that some thought. More to come on this because I think we are just at the beginning of this stuff. And like I said, when I see articles like this that, basically take one doctor's opinion and one doctor that, might have conducted, he said he conducted a study with 100 patients. I mean, that's not a lot. That's not a lot. And then for this to be really publicized on CNN the way that it kind of was on the front page of, when I opened up my top 5 stories of the day. I don't know. I think that's a little irresponsible when it comes to reporting on that. And again, like I said, this all seemed to have started in 2022. All right, anyway, shifting gears. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about the book that's coming out, and not so much necessarily about the content, but I think a lot of people have been just interested on how the heck you write a book. And so I'm going to do a full-blown episode that really kind of like the one I did on how to launch a podcast. So I'm going to do, a full-blown one once the book gets released. But, I did want to say, as I talked the other day, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a tremendous amount of work. And if it's something that you are interested in doing, I'll absolutely, give you the answer sheet on how to do it. But in specific, I had a few questions talking about, I guess, the nuts and bolts of it. And really fundamentally, to give it to you in a very simplified fashion right now, again, and we'll do the more detailed episode down the line here a little bit, but you need a couple things. First of all, you need a Library of Congress control number. So every book that gets published needs it's almost like a Social Security number, but it's a Library of Congress number. That's super easy. You go on their website, you fill out a few things, register an account, put your book information in, and then really in 24 hours, you'll get that control number. The second thing is you need something called an ISBN number. That also, I guess that's also like a Social Security number for your book, but that's something that you have to get through an outside agency. And this is pretty funny. There's a company called Balker, and these dudes have like a monopoly on these ISBNs. Like they're really the only place in America that you can buy these from, and they're pretty expensive. I mean, I bought a 10-pack, 10 ISBNs for $295, and then because I think one ISBN was like $150 or something like that. And so those ISBNs, every single format of your book needs its own ISBN. So that means for me, in my 10-pack, I'm going to come out with an ebook. I'm going to come out with a paperback. I will probably come out with a hardcover, and then I'm going to do it on Audible as well, so an audio. So that's going to burn through 4 of my 10 ISBNs right there. So those guys have a nice little racket going when it comes to needing that. And then the third thing that I really just wanted to touch on today is it has to be formatted properly. Now, there's a few different ways of formatting books. There's expensive software that you can use for that type stuff. But fundamentally, I actually was able to do mine in Microsoft Word, and there was a lot of criticism on the internet about Microsoft Word, but man, I found it incredible to be able to do it in Word, and kind of learned a lot about all the nuances of Word. But you basically have to have it formatted in a certain way, the line spacing, the paragraph indents, the margins, things like that. Again, it's not difficult, but it's just a little technical and cumbersome. So anyway, I wanted to get those questions answered because I did get asked multiple times by multiple people about that. So I thought I would just cover that, for everybody's interest. Hopefully that was interesting. All right, a little bit more follow-up from yesterday, the solar eclipse, but nothing to do with that. Anyway, looks like after many, many years, we're finally going back to the moon. So there looks like there's a joint mission between NASA and Japan going back to the moon. I don't know, man. I've got my doubts on that whole moon landing thing. I'm really debating doing an episode on the moon landing because that's goofy to me. It is. It just is. I'm sorry. I'm willing to debate that with anybody. And I'll tease it with the fact that going to the moon is the one technology and the one event that has had zero advancement in the last 50 years. The only one. Every other piece of technology, think about the car, think about the airplane, trains, think about televisions, think about the cellular phone, think about the internet, think about refrigerators, microwaves. Everything else in the world has had leaps and bounds of technological advancement. Our warfare, holy guacamole. Look at the stealth bombers and all that stuff. Anyway, I find it strange, the whole space program. I just do. All right, more more on that another time too. Also, building on yesterday, I did want to say that Apple Sports app I talked about, oh my God, that thing is trash. Do not even waste your time on that. It's like so bad. Like it doesn't, I thought it would actually give me all the sports news and highlights and stuff, but it doesn't. It literally just gives the scores. So if you want a snapshot of the scores from various sports leagues, you can find it in that, but overall it's pretty bad. I'm looking at it right now as I'm talking. It's like not good at all, and it doesn't even have all the sports. Like there's no boxing, there's no UFC. So anyway, don't waste your time on that Apple Sports app. My bad for even recommending it. All right, next topic. This is another just, man, crazy one, and it's about abortion. And I don't know if you guys saw, but in Arizona, they passed the state Supreme Court of Arizona passed a law that would revive an 1864 law that basically says there are no exceptions for abortion, including rape or incest. So basically zero exceptions when it comes to having abortion. So, man, I know that's a super controversial topic. I'm not going to really get into it much, but what I will say is I do think it's crazy that the Arizona State Supreme Court is trying to revive a law from 1864. I mean, come on. I don't care what it is. I'm not worried. It could be anything. We should not be following doctrine that was created in 1864, over 150 years ago. I mean, that's just insanity. That's just insanity. Another piece of follow-up from yesterday, actually, that I did want to talk about is, our RFK dropping out and becoming Trump's VP. I brought it up yesterday because actually, I'm gonna fess up to something. That was an original Ray D. But I was a little nervous saying it, so I couched it. I couched it as I had read some things from various places, but I had not read anything from anywhere. I felt bad yesterday. I was like, I shouldn't have misled my audience like that. That was an original Ray D. And it was. And man, I don't think it's crazy. I really don't. I don't think it's crazy. Those two seem to get along. There's never really been anything visceral between the two of them. And I will say they are both very united on their stance in support of Israel. That's one common thing they're united on. And then, a few other things. I mean, they're both kind of quote unquote anti-establishment guys, although RFK Jr. talks about it a lot more than Trump does these days. And, I said this in a previous episode, but I also give RFK Jr. credit for, talking about the military industrial complex and, a variety of things. I mean, he's really put a lot of that stuff into the mainstream much more than any other political figure previously had. But him and Trump together, I mean, man, that could be very formidable. And especially if, Trump lets his ego calm a little bit and, really would empower RFK Jr. as a VP to where it's not just, kind of like the show Veep on HBO where Julia Louis-Dreyfus is basically not really anything. So that could be interesting. So I did want to actually take credit for that. In case it does end up happening, then I can be like, hey, remember on April 10th and then April 11th when I talked about it? Yeah, that was a Ray D original. So we'll see with that. I don't think RFK Jr. has a chance on his own. I will say this VP pick of his, again, I think that lady is just an ATM machine. I think she's just helping fund the campaign. I don't really see any tremendous value there in terms of having her on the ticket. I could easily see RFK Jr. telling her, hey, you know what, thanks. I'll take care of you. I'll quid pro quo you something on the back end, but I'm going to run with Trump and we're going to make a go at this. So anyway, could be interesting. Lastly, I did want to ask if there are any podcasts out there that you guys really like, anybody that listens to other podcasts that they love, definitely let me know. I'm trying to sample as many podcasts as I can just to see what everybody's doing, what their style is, what their flow is, intro, outro, and, just basically do a little research to see how I can make this one better. But please let me know if there's any ones out there that you really like. I will say, man, some of these podcasts, I mean, Joe Rogan in particular, I think he's the current GOAT of the podcast world, but man, his episodes are like 3 hours long and he comes out with them every few days. That's seriously insane to me that many people allocate that much time on a weekly basis. I mean, if he comes out with 3 podcasts a week, and let's say they're 2 hours long, that's 6 hours a week to that. That's a lot. And I think his episodes are actually all longer than 2 hours, and I'll have to go back and look and see exactly what his broadcast schedule is. But anyway, if there are ones that you listen to that are, if you're listening to a 2+ hour podcast or something, let me know, because obviously I think that's amazing that it can captivate your attention that long. And I'd love to know how you do it. Do you do it all in one sitting, or do you break it up, or how you do that? But regardless, I would like to understand if there are any real good podcasts out there that everybody likes that I can hopefully listen to and see if I can search and reapply some best practices. All right, everybody, that's it. Have a great day. Call a spade, and we'll catch up with you soon.
The ending was terrific.
This episode is being brought to you by the upcoming book, Deep Shallow Dive Into You. That's right, Bro wrote a book, and it's coming soon. Stay tuned.